The moment he saw that flash of sword light, Lin Chia's pupils suddenly contracted. As the Kusanagi sword rapidly approached, an unprecedented sense of mortal danger surged in his heart. Even though they were less than a kilometer away from the gateway portal, even though that ancient and massive gate had already opened a crack, there wasn't the slightest joy in Lin Chia's heart. Because the Kusanagi sword was faster than them. At this rate, before the carriage could leave Takamagara, that sword would turn them all into a bloody mist first. Seeming to sense the approaching danger, the ghost white horses pulling the carriage slightly deviated from their original path, trying to avoid the sword's trajectory. But the moment they turned, the Kusanagi sword behind them also adjusted its blade, as if it had firmly locked onto them. At this moment, Lin Chia could clearly sense that the Kusanagi sword wasn't targeting the carriage, but them inside it. Lin Chia's heart immediately sank. In that split second, countless thoughts flashed through his mind, but he still couldn't think of a way to break this deadlock. Just then Jialon's hand gently pulled away from his. Lin Chia was stunned. His expression suddenly changed as if he had realized something. "Jialon, what are you trying to do?" Jialon smiled slightly. "Don't worry, I promised you I wouldn't randomly transfer immortality to you. I don't want to be an untrustworthy puppy." She placed both hands on the carriage compartment beneath her, and a white light flowed into the carriage. Immortality had been transferred to the surface of the compartment. Seeing this, Lin Chia finally breathed a sigh of relief. In the current situation, transferring immortality to the carriage compartment was indeed the best choice, as it could protect both of them simultaneously. The moment immortality covered the carriage, the Kusanagi sword flashed across several kilometers, its blade carrying terrifying killing intent and momentum, precisely piercing the surface of the compartment. The thunderous sonic boom almost deafened Lin Chia. The power bestowed upon the Kusanagi sword was too terrifying. In that instant the entire carriage violently shook. The ghost white horses pulling the compartment were directly annihilated by the Kusanagi sword's aftershock, dissipating into the air. At the same time, the carriage's wheel hubs, railings, and the base supporting the compartment were instantly pulverized. The silver compartment crashed heavily to the ground, raising clouds of dust. The sword, that could cleave through all things, and the shield, that could block almost everything, clashed head-on at this moment. Under the piercing sound of metal clashing, the Kusanagi sword's blade fiercely collided with immortality on the compartment's surface. Visible shock waves whirled the dust everywhere. The ground beneath the compartment cracked inch by inch, instantly creating a giant crater with a radius of 3 kilometers. Lin Chia stood inside the compartment, barely maintaining his balance, while Jialon's expression was extremely grave beside him. Click. An extremely faint breaking sound emerged. The Kusanagi sword's blade had penetrated half an inch into the compartment, and spider web-like cracks slowly spread from that fine gap. Although the gap was small, it indicated that the power of immortality covering the compartment had reached its limit. Sensing this scene, Lin Chia's expression became increasingly grave. He frowned as he watched the blade slowly piercing the compartment's inner wall, and only now did he truly realize Jialon's immortality wasn't omnipotent. Even Jialon could be injured before this supreme weapon of Takamagara. Inside the compartment, a trace of blood seeped from Jialon's lips, gently dripping onto her deep blue hanfu, spreading layers of red. Her face was as pale as paper. "Jialon, are you all right?" Lin Chia's eyes were full of concern. I'm fine." Jialon's gaze fixed on the Kusanagi sword filled with killing intent. She bit her lips, then turned to look at Lin Chia beside her. In the compartment, only the sword's hum and the slow cracking sound of the compartment's interior remained. She just looked at his face like this, and after a moment, a bright smile appeared on her pale lips. "What is it?" Lin Chia was slightly startled seeing this smile. "I suddenly thought of something happy." Jialon's eyes curved into crescents as she smiled at Lin Chia. "Just now, Uncle Merlin told me that you said you liked me." Lin Chia was stunned. He hadn't expected Jialon to bring this up at such a moment, and his expression became somewhat awkward. "I did say that, but..." Creak. Under the Kusanagi sword's continuous penetration, the blade was about to pierce through the compartment's inner wall. The white light outside the compartment flickered slightly, seeming to grow increasingly dim. The compartment structure was compressed by an invisible force, emitting a low humming sound. But you're worried it was the effect of Cupid's arrow? Jialan finished Lin Chia's sentence. Yes. Idiot. Lin Chia was stunned. Did you really think I would use such means to force you to like me? Jialan looked at his eyes reproachfully. False love is called false love because all the feelings it brings are fake. I, Jialan, don't need such things. Think carefully. After being pierced by that arrow, did you really develop any romantic feelings for me? Looking at Jialan's gaze, Lin Chia fell into confusion. He suddenly recalled the day when he had just returned to Beijing City and visited Squad 006's station. They had gone to the squad's training ground and seen two grown men embracing each other intimately. Under Li Jinjin's love god's arrow, even two burly men would be affected by false love and perform those eye-searing actions, proving how powerful the love god's arrow was. But why did he feel nothing after being pierced by Jialan? Even after that, his most intimate contact with Jialan was just touching hands. In his mind, the scene of Jialan holding the love god's arrow in the training camp instructor's dormitory reappeared, piercing his chest amidst flying wood chips, her face full of shyness and determination. Lin Chia seemed to realize something and asked in shock, that arrow was fake? That arrow didn't have any of Jinjin's spiritual power in it at all. Jialan spoke somewhat aggrievedly. If it had been a real love god's arrow, we probably would have had children by now, you idiot. Then why did I? Lin Chia's words stopped halfway as if he had realized something. Jialan's lips pursed slightly, her cheeks flushing red. She turned her head to the side and said softly, if I hadn't taken the initiative to pierce you with that arrow, when would your wooden brain ever realize that I like you? Lin Chia stood frozen in place. I know I may have been too impatient lately. I was desperate to let you know I like you, desperate to make you like me. This might have troubled you. Jialan lowered her head, her deep blue hanfu already stained with a large patch of blood, and she murmured, but I really don't have much time left. Lin Chia frowned before he could comprehend what Jialan meant. A thunderous sound rang in his ears. Bang! The immortal, flickering around the carriage had reached its limit. Under the piercing of the Aim no Murakumo sword, it shattered into countless white lights and rolled back into Jialan's body. At the same time, the terrifying aftershock instantly crushed the carriage, causing it to completely explode. Lin Chia quickly grabbed Jialan's hand while drawing Fan by half an inch from his waist. Their figures simultaneously vanished into the void. In the black and white world, Lin Chia carried the extremely weakened Jialan on his back, rushing rapidly toward the gateway of summoning, but the Aim no Murakumo sword behind them seemed to have grown eyes, immediately turning its blade to strike at their location. Although after being blocked by the immortal carriage, the Aim no Murakumo sword's speed had decreased significantly, it was still far faster than Lin Chia. The blade emanating a cold gleam pierced through the void, directly splitting a corner of the void where Zhanbai existed. Even the void could be cut by the Aim no Murakumo sword. The surrounding void shattered, Lin Chia's face turned pale, he gritted his teeth and pushed his speed to the limit, rushing toward the gateway of summoning that was just within reach. However, the distance between the Aim no Murakumo sword and him was still rapidly shrinking. Almost there. Almost there. Just a little more and they would pass through that gate. Feeling the killing intent from behind, Lin Chia's eyes turned red, and with determination rising in his heart, he swiftly pulled out a metal from his chest, flicked it lightly and a silver needle sprung out. He took a deep breath. Just as he was about to inject the ghost god needle into his body, a hand reached out from behind and firmly grabbed his wrist. Chia. From behind Lin Chia came Jialan's weak voice. She smiled slightly. As long as I'm alive, you can't die, you can't ignore me in the future, and next time, I want to hear you say that you like me. Okay. Lin Chia's thoughts suddenly froze. He opened his mouth wide, almost roaring in the fierce wind. Jialan, what are you trying to do? A gentle smile appeared on Jialan's pale face. She didn't answer. She just leaned close to Lin Chia's ear, and playfully yet weakly made a sound. Woof. Shattered white light from within Jialan's body flowed into Lin Chia's back. This was the remaining immortal power that hadn't had time to reorganize after the carriage shattered, perhaps less than a third of what it was before, but still possessed extremely strong defensive capabilities. Jialan had broken her promise. Feeling the immortal power contained within his body, a raging fire of anger rose in Lin Chia's heart. In his perception, that world-destroying Aim-no-Murakumo sword tore through the sky, its blade instantly reaching his back. "You've got to be kidding!" Lin Chia roared furiously in the fierce wind, his eyes completely red. Jialon had already given up immortal. Once to save him, he absolutely couldn't let this happen a second time. Lin Chia was a man, the captain of the Nightfall team. No matter what happened, he shouldn't be the one protected by Jialon. Without any hesitation, he reached back to grab Jialon's wrist, pulled her from his back into his arms, using his body to shield hers, then forcefully kicked off from within the gateway of summoning. His figure leaped upward. At that moment, the peerless blade pierced his back, releasing terrifying destructive power. The immortal power Jialon had left in his body frantically resisted the Aim-no-Murakumo sword's strike, but the already once broken immortal couldn't completely block it. The blade still pierced through Lin Chia's back flesh, heading straight for his heart. Lin Chia endured the intense pain, let out a low roar, and his entire body's spiritual power exploded, instantly spreading a golden domain with him at its center. Mortal Divine Domain. Since immortal couldn't stop the Aim-no-Murakumo sword's strike, Lin Chia's only option left was a miracle. He needed to create a miracle that would allow both of them to survive. As Lin Chia frantically poured in his spiritual power, the golden light of the domain around them grew increasingly brilliant. The blade that was about to pierce Lin Chia's heart slightly deviated under some mysterious force, grazing past his heart and penetrating through his chest. The blade tip of the Aim-no-Murakumo sword, stained with his blood, pierced into Jialon's body. She let out a muffled groan, with traces of blood seeping from the corners of her pale lips. This strike had also avoided Jialon's vital points. Only then did the kinetic energy contained in the Aim-no-Murakumo sword completely dissipate. With their bodies pierced through, Lin Chia and Jialon floated out of the gateway of summoning's gap under inertia, falling toward the misty sea outside. Suddenly, as if some mysterious force was pulling the Aim-no-Murakumo sword, the blade slowly withdrew from Jialon and Lin Chia's bodies, attempting to fly back into Takamagara. As the blade left Lin Chia's body, large amounts of blood flowed down his skin. Lin Chia's eyes were blood-red as he stared fixedly at the blood-colored sky behind the gateway of summoning, endless resentment and rage surging in his heart. With strength from who knows where, he let out a low roar and suddenly reached out his right hand, firmly grasping the hilt of the retreating Aim-no-Murakumo sword. His crimson eyes flickered with mad light. "Want to use this sword to kill me? Sorry I survived. Then, your sword won't be going back either." Seemingly sensing the resistance of the Aim-no-Murakumo sword, Susanoo in the depths of Takamagara was slightly stunned, then reached out his right hand and forcefully pulled through the air. An incomparable force transmitted through the Aim-no-Murakumo sword, pulling Lin Chia's body rapidly toward the slowly closing gap of the gateway of summoning. Unfortunately, its speed was still a step too slow. With a deep rumbling boom, this gateway of summoning standing on the sea surface, reaching from earth to sky, completely closed, totally separating the outer world from the blood-colored world within, and that mysterious pulling force was cut off as well. Lin Chia's right hand firmly gripped the Aim-no-Murakumo sword, his left arm holding the unconscious Jialon, as they fell from midair toward the surging sea. In Takamagara, Merlin, struggling amidst endless whispers, turned his head toward the gateway of guidance. Strands of fate intertwined in his pupils as he saw everything that happened at the entrance. Seeing those two figures leave Takamagara, Merlin's anxious heart finally settled. At the same time, he turned back to look at the empty-handed Susanoo, his eyes exploding with sky-shattering anger. "Are you seeking death?" He suddenly raised his staff, and two massive magic circles instantly spread across the blood-red sky, overlapping and rotating slowly in opposite directions. Merlin lightly drew his thumb across his palm, creating a cut that appeared in his palm. The flowing blood didn't fall to the ground with gravity, but instead rapidly spiraled upward into the sky under some mysterious force. The blood merged into the two counter-rotating magic circles, and dazzling light illuminated every pattern, like a radiant sun hanging high in the sky. Strands of hair fell from Merlin's head. His right hand pressed against the brim of his windbreaker hood, his eyes flickering with murderous intent. his blood-covered left hand pointed at Susanoo from afar. Extinction Sword Curse. Slash. A blood-red holy sword materialized between the two counter-rotating magic circles. World-ending energy swept from its tip, crossing space in an instant, striking the ground like lightning. Sensing the terrifying power in this forbidden spell, Susanoo, his eyes crimson red, instinctively tried to dodge this strike. His form rapidly dashed across the ground as the distant sea of blood surged again, gathering massive amounts of water into a sky-touching red wave that struck directly at the blood-red holy sword. Boom! The blood-red holy sword split the crimson wave, instantly piercing the ground. A terrifying deep red pillar of light shot into the clouds, and the world-destroying forbidden spell's aura instantly covered all of Takamagara. Drops of blood fell from Merlin's palm as he stood in the air beneath the twin moons, wearing his magic robe, looking down at the ruins below. On the surface of the second red moon in the sky, the blood-red color began to churn like waves. Just as Merlin was about to act, his body trembled and his brows furrowed tightly. While resisting the whispered pollution in his mind, he fixed his gaze on the second red moon. Because you worshipped that red moon's power, after death you merged your divine power and soul to imitate the red moon, hanging it above your divine realm. You executioner who personally destroyed your own pantheon, why are you now having a change of heart and trying to protect your brother? Merlin's eyes narrowed slightly. His gaze swept across the center of the ruins, where the badly wounded Susanoo was slowly climbing up from the shattered ground. His right arm had vanished, leaving only a grotesque sword wound hole hanging from his shoulder. Those blood-red eyes stared obsessively at the red moon in the sky, his face full of manic worship. Merlin seemed to understand something and coldly laughed. After completely corrupting his divine consciousness, you turned him into a fanatic you could use. What a good brother, aren't you? As the moonlight from the two red moons gradually intensified, the redness in Merlin's eyes also grew stronger. He frowned, watching the severely wounded Susanoo in the ruins for a moment before sighing helplessly. He raised his head, taking one last look at those two red moons, and muttered, "I will definitely find the secret of your existence." Merlin lightly raised his staff, his form transforming into a beam of rainbow light that rapidly crossed the sky, passing through the gateway of guidance and vanishing without a trace. Misty chaos, roaring waves. Merlin's figure flew out from the crack in the gateway of guidance, landing on the surging seawater. He looked back, and Takamagara's gateway of guidance had already closed and was slowly disappearing as if it had never existed. After this gateway completely vanished, Merlin finally relaxed his spirit. His form swayed as a mouthful of blood surged from his throat and fell into the seawater below. His face was as pale as paper. Between the pollution from the two red moons and the consecutive use of large-scale forbidden spells, both his spirit and divine power were severely depleted. If he had stayed in Takamagara any longer, not only would he have failed to kill Susanoo, but his consciousness would likely have fallen as well. For someone who had just left the hospital, this was already his limit. Merlin's gaze swept the surroundings but didn't see Lin Chier and Jalan. Strands of fate intertwined in his eyes as he briefly foresaw the future, and a smile appeared at the corners of his mouth. It seems all those contingencies I left will come in handy. Cough, 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 cough. Merlin bent over, coughing violently. He remained still on the sea surface like a stone statue for quite a while before finally taking a deep breath and stumbling toward the distance. He had only walked a few steps when he stopped. A breeze swept across the churning sea surface as Merlin stared at the chaotic mist before him, his eyes narrowing slightly. Through the mist, a figure could be seen slowly walking across the sea surface. It was a Taoist with his hair tied up in a bun, wearing a coarse cloth Taoist robe that swayed gently in the wind. His bright eyes looked at Merlin with a smile. Merlin was stunned for a long while, his pale lips curling up uncontrollably. "It seems I guessed correctly." Merlin's gaze moved away from the Taoist to look distantly at the void above, muttering, "Well, are indeed here." Near Japanese waters. In the surging waves, a massive cruise ship shadow broke through the chaotic mist, slowly advancing. Clusters of bright yellow lights dotted the black night sky like stars on the sea. From its appearance, this was a modern Western-style cruise ship, about 200 meters long and at least 50 meters high. Its heavy and enormous body moved forward slowly on the sea surface like a small mountain. Looking closer, one would discover that the surface of this cruise ship was composed of extremely fine particles, like a dream ship sailing out of a pixel world. On the side of the ship's hull, two large characters were carved in black in sharp strokes. Changye. On the top floor of this pixel cruise ship, a huge indoor swimming pool reflected the lights, its water gently swaying with the ship's movement. By the pool, a young woman in a swimsuit was lounging lazily in a white rocking chair, her black hair falling like a waterfall. She looked at the misty fog outside the floor-to-ceiling windows and yawned. Just then a man in a suit walked over. "Chairman." The girl lying in the rocking chair raised an eyebrow. "What is it? Are we reaching Japan?" "We are indeed approaching the location marked by paratrooper. But besides that there's another matter." The man paused. "Just now on our deck, two people appeared out of thin air." "Appeared out of thin air?" Jin Yen was stunned. "We don't know exactly how they appeared, but when we turned around, they were just lying there." "Lying? Are they dead?" "Well, that's hard to say." The man's expression was somewhat strange. "Their condition is very special, so we need you to take a look personally." Jin Yen casually put on a loose trench coat to cover her swimsuit, tied her black hair with a hair tie and followed the man to the deck. On the massive cruise ship, there were only about 40 people in total, and at this moment, almost everyone had gathered in the middle of the deck, carefully examining the two people who had just been rescued, their faces filled with confusion. "The president is here. Quick, make way for the president." "Greetings, President." "Greetings, President." When someone in the crowd saw Jin Yen approaching in her trench coat, they immediately called out, and the crowd instantly parted to create a path, bowing slightly in greeting. Jin Yen nodded slightly and calmly walked through the crowd, heading straight to the two people. On the pixel-composed deck, a man and a woman lay quietly, with seawater dripping from their clothes, forming a pool of water around them. Both lay unconscious in the center of the water. The woman wore a blood-stained dark blue Han robe and was extremely pale. There was a horrific sword wound on her back, but no blood was seeping out and her breathing was weak but stable. The man's injuries were much more severe, with a sword wound that had pierced through his body from the back, his clothes stained red with blood. His left hand tightly gripped the woman's hand, while his right hand clutched a long sword. Even though he was unconscious, both hands remained locked like iron clamps, showing no sign of letting go. The moment Jin Yen's gaze fell on the man, her pupils contracted and her body suddenly trembled. She seemed lost in thought, her lips slightly parted as she whispered to herself. "It's him, how can it be him?" "President, what did you say?" asked the man in the suit beside her, puzzled. "Nothing." Jin Yen came back to her senses and shook her head slightly. After hesitating for a moment, the man spoke. "These two people's conditions are very strange. The woman has a sword wound, but there's no bleeding and the muscle tissue around the wound shows no signs of healing. Moreover, her wound is still fresh. It's as if all the cells were frozen at the moment of injury. The man is even stranger. With such a severe penetrating wound, even if it didn't hit the heart, it should have caused massive blood loss. Most people would have died from blood loss already, but he's not only alive, but the wound is gradually healing on its own. His survival is nothing short of a miracle." "Miracle?" Jin Yen shrugged. She wasn't sure about the woman's condition, but this man, he truly represented a miracle. "Take them both to the ship's medical bay for emergency treatment," Jin Yen calmly ordered. The Shanghai Association members immediately carried the two people from the deck to the medical bay, and the others dispersed. Jin Yen, wearing her trench coat, walked alone to the bow of the ship, her gaze fixed on the faint coastline visible through the fog in the distance, her eyes slightly narrowed. "President, we're approaching the gap in the Yatta mirror," said the man in the suit as he walked to her side. Jin Yen nodded calmly, turning to walk toward the cabin, her tattered trench coat swaying in the misty wind. "Notify everyone to prepare for entering the human circle." Human circle. North Hokkaido coast. Wei Dong stood by the turbulent sea, gazing at the distant horizon, his eyes showing anxiety. "Sir Knight, why haven't the president and others arrived yet?" He turned to ask the knight beside him, unable to contain his worry. The knight sat leisurely on the beach, casually picking up a seashell and throwing it into the distant waves, responding unhurriedly, "Don't worry, passing through that gap takes time. We've marked all the signals along the way, and with the president there, what could go wrong?" "You're right." Wei Dong nodded, feeling somewhat relieved. Boom. Suddenly, a tremendous roar came from the distant sea, and a massive pixel sphere rapidly surfaced from the ocean depths, crashing into the water after breaking the surface, creating terrifying circular waves. "Holy shit." The blonde, blue-eyed knight blurted out a curse and turned to run, but the rolling waves still hit the beach and the splashing seawater eventually soaked his clothes. Wei Dong looked at the pixel sphere on the sea, his eyes filled with wild joy. The pixel sphere's shell dispersed like foam, revealing the massive cruise ship within. A young woman stood quietly at the bow, hands in her pockets as falling seawater like rain soaked her clothes. "So this is the human circle of the Takamagara gods." Jin Yen's gaze swept across the blue sky and white clouds, then toward the distant silhouettes of buildings on shore, clicking her tongue. "The scale is really ridiculous, isn't it?" As the cruise ship gradually approached the shore, Jin Yen stepped directly off the bow, gracefully leaping to the coastline. Wei Dong and the knight bowed slightly, saying in unison, "Greetings, President." "Hey little Wei Dong, long time no see?" Jin Yen smiled, patting Wei Dong's shoulder. "Thanks for your hard work this time." Wei Dong smiled helplessly. "President, I'm already 30, using little isn't really appropriate, is it?" "What's inappropriate about it?" Jin Yen waved dismissively and walked to the soaking wet knight, looking him up and down with an odd expression. "Old Six, did you just come from a hot spring? I heard that most mixed baths in Hokkaido are full of old ladies eyeing young men's bodies. You didn't get taken advantage of, did you?" "Knight." "President, everything on the ship is ready." A Shanghai Association member walked up behind Jin Yen and reported. Jin Yen nodded slightly, her playful expression gradually becoming serious. "Wei Dong, is the temporary base ready?" "It's ready," Wei Dong nodded. "We have some connections with a Yakuza family in Tokyo. They've lent us one of their properties as a temporary residence." "Yakuza family? Minamoto or Yusuji?" "Kazumitsuri." "The novels really are deceiving." Jin Yen shrugged. "Let's go, lead the way." Tokyo. Kazumitsuri family. Welcome to the midday news. According to the latest reports as of 9 a.m. today, the total number of criminal cases in Osaka this week has reached 32,012, second only to Tokyo's 37,621, making it Japan's second highest crime city. This week, Tokyo has averaged approximately 5,300 criminal incidents per day. Shinjuku, Shibuya, Chiyoda, and Edagawa districts have completely fallen into criminal chaos, with all police stations paralyzed, including numerous cases of armed group violence. We advise residents of the above 4 districts to avoid going out unless absolutely necessary. Meanwhile, Dawn Radio again reminds all residents that if you experience symptoms such as red eyes, insomnia, or unexplained agitation, please seek immediate isolation treatment at the nearest hospital. In the empty living room, Yuzurina knelt quietly on a round cushion, wearing a black kimono adorned with cherry blossoms. A gentle breeze carried a few cherry blossoms into the room onto the tatami, and her light pink cherry blossom hairpin cast a faint halo in the sunlight as she lowered her head to look at the radio before her, slowly closing her eyes. Creak. A tall figure in white clothing opened the door and walked in. Yuzurina turned to look and saw Yuzurataki standing behind her, a gentle smile appearing on his blood-stained face. "Sister, I'm back," he said softly. "Why are you covered in blood again?" Yuzurina quickly stood up and walked in front of him, looking up at him worriedly. "Are you hurt?" "No, this is just blood from the corpse beasts. I'm strong, they can't hurt me," Yuzurataki said with a smile. "Take off your clothes, let me wash them." Yuzurina frowned as she helped Yuzurataki remove his outer garment. "This is already the 4th one today. If this continues, no matter how capable you are, your body will break down." "I'm not tired." Yuzurataki gently took off his outer garment and smiled. "Wherever monsters appear, I'll go there to defeat them and save everyone. Sister, I'm just like Ultraman now." Hearing this, Yuzurina burst into laughter. "You're so grown up now, yet still watching such childish things." Yuzurataki froze. "But sister, I'm only 13. Yuzurina's hands stopped in midair. She stared blankly at the blood-stained white garment in her hands, standing still like a statue. Sister. Uzurataki looked at Yuzurina with pure, puzzled eyes. Yuzurina snapped back to reality, blinking her slightly moist eyes hard. Oh, I'll go wash your clothes now. She turned and walked in the other direction. Boom. Just then a faint rumbling sound came from the distant sky. Yuzurina's body trembled. Breaking news. Another black beast has appeared in Edagawa District, Tokyo. 2 residential buildings have collapsed and the scene is in chaos. Will the white-robed divine appear in time to save these people in distress? The radio's voice echoed in the spacious living room as the siblings stood by the sliding doors overlooking the cherry blossom-filled courtyard, both falling into silence. After a moment, Uzurataki spoke. Sister, give me back my clothes. I'll return after killing this one, then you can wash them. Otherwise, they'll just get dirty again. Yuzurina's small hands clutched tightly to the blood-stained white garment in her arms, no longer able to contain her grief as tears uncontrollably rolled down her cheeks, blending with the bloodstains on the white cloth. Why? Yuzurina suddenly turned around and shouted with all her might. Why do you have to take all these burdens upon yourself? Why should you be responsible for these people's lives? You're only 13. This world has never treated you well, so why are you going to such lengths? At 13 you should just stay home watching tokusatsu shows, being a child who dreams of becoming a hero. Only idiots would actually want to become heroes. Seeing Yuzurina crying before him, Uzurataki stood stunned. After a long silence, he stepped forward to the sobbing Yuzurina, crouched down and showed a warm smile on his blood-stained face. I'm not an idiot, sister. There are no idiots in the Yuzuri family. He said softly. Brother Amamiya was once the person who hated this corrupt nation the most and wanted to completely destroy it. But do you know why he's now searching alone for ways to help this nation survive in these desperate times? Yuzurina shook her head in confusion. Brother Amamiya hated the theocracy, the outdated thoughts and society corrupted by religious authority, not the people. Any human group is complex. While some may be beyond saving, there are always others who have the potential to change. What they lack is just the right environment. In this human circle, there are too few people who can break free from the old cage and achieve self-awakening, and among them, those with the power to change everything are even rarer. As far as I know, there's only Brother Amamiya, Father, you and me. When crisis comes, we who have awakened and possess power must either choose to stay safe and become deserters of this world, or stand up and become pioneers who turn the tide. Sister, I don't want to be a deserter. Perhaps we won't be understood, perhaps this path will be extremely difficult, but we want to give this country a chance to return to the right path. This is what Brother Amamiya and I are doing. Looking at Uzurataki's pure and serious eyes, Yuzurina stood stunned. She never imagined that her simple, game-loving otaku brother would have such far-reaching thoughts. Indeed, there are no idiots in the Yuzuri family. Before him, Yuzurina felt she was the foolish one. Uzurataki reached out and gently wiped away Yuzurina's tears, smiling like a big boy. Besides, being able to become a hero like me is the dream of so many children my age. In children's world, there aren't so many conflicts of interest or scheming. We just want to become heroes, that's all. Even if there's just a slight chance, I want to carry these children's wishes and become their light. Uzurataki reached out and pointed to the blood-stained white garment in Yuzurina's arms. Sister, can you give me back my Ultraman suit? Hearing this, Yuzurina, who had stopped crying, couldn't help but laugh again. She pressed her lips together and returned the white garment to Uzurataki, her expression more serious than ever before. No matter what happens, you must protect yourself, understand? I understand, sister. I'll be back soon. Uzurataki stood up, smiled and waved to Yuzurina, then turned to walk outside. He put on the blood-stained white garment as falling cherry blossoms danced in the wind. This tall 13-year-old boy was carving out a path called hope through thorns for millions of lives with his own hands. His figure flickered and disappeared. Yuzurina silently gazed in the direction he left for a long while, as if making some decision, then called out to the door. Takuya. A young man stepped forward and bowed respectfully to Yuzurina, family head. Call all Kazamatsuri family members in Tokyo, we're going out in 10 minutes. Going out? Family head, it's very chaotic outside. What are we going to do? We're going to enforce heaven's justice. Tokyo. Shinjuku District. On the busiest main road of this area, everything was in ruins. There were almost no pedestrians on the street, and all the popular shops on both sides that were once bustling with people had closed their doors. Even so, most of these closed shop doors had been smashed to pieces. Down the street, a group of men wearing black masks, wielding hammers and machetes, laughed maniacally as they rushed into a bar, stealing the few remaining bottles from the counter and drinking them right there on the street. The garbage cans by the road had been burned black, broken bottles, dented bullet casings and dried blood stains were everywhere. Grotesque red Japanese characters were smeared on the walls, with dirty and aggressive words all around. Yet on this chaotic and disorderly main street, there was still one establishment with its doors wide open. This was a 6-story standalone building, its design perfectly blending modern elements with traditional Japanese courtyard style, decorated in black and gold tones, exuding luxury and grandeur. This was currently the largest and most luxurious host club in all of Japan. It was also the only establishment still operating normally in Shinjuku. The Asaba Club. Jinian and the members of Shangxia Society stood in front of this magnificent club, their mouths agape in shock. Wei Dong scratched his head and explained timely, "I know setting up our temporary base in a host club might damage our Shangxia Society's image, but the current human circle situation is very complicated. Besides this place, there's almost nowhere else in Tokyo where we can take shelter, so, President, please make do." "Well done." Before Wei Dong could finish speaking, Jinian suddenly turned around, her eyes gleaming with excitement. "Little Wei Dong. You understand me so well." She patted Wei Dong's shoulder heavily, gave him a thumbs up, then quickly rushed into the establishment, excitedly muttering, "Hosts. Champagne. A royal experience. Here I come. Hey everyone. I want to order 10. Watching Jinian dash away into the establishment, the remaining Shangxia Society members outside fell silent. The man in the suit sighed, "Let's all go in. What are you looking at? Is this your first time seeing the president go crazy?" The Shangxia Society members cleared their throats and quickly followed. As soon as they walked through the club's entrance and saw the situation inside, their expressions instantly changed. Countless candles flickered in blue and purple glass shades, illuminating the entire club brightly. At that moment, several handsome men in sparkly formal wear sat on scattered leather sofas in the spacious hall, holding submachine guns pointed at the door, seemingly ready to fire at any moment, their expressions completely calm. On the suspended walkway of the second floor, 4 snipers were already in position. 4 red dots danced on Jinian's face, who had just walked in, finally converging on her brow. Jinian stood before the many gun barrels wearing a tattered coat, hands in her pockets, eyes slightly narrowed. Waves of dangerous aura emanated from her body. "This is not a place for you to cause trouble." On the black leather sofa at the back, sat a host wearing a blue sparkly suit, his left hand holding a samurai sword about to be unsheathed, his right hand gripping a submachine gun as he spoke calmly. "Leave the Kazumitsuri's property is not something you can mess with." In this tense atmosphere, Wei Dong quickly stepped forward, his gaze sweeping across everyone present, a bitter smile appearing at the corner of his mouth. "Put down your guns. It's me." Seeing Wei Dong, the host in blue was slightly startled. "Mr. Wei? This is a misunderstanding. These are the companions I mentioned to your master before, who will be staying temporarily," Wei Dong said, pointing at the Shangxia Society members behind him. The blue-clothed host blinked, immediately hiding the submachine gun and samurai sword under the sofa, stood up, cleared his throat somewhat embarrassedly and said to those around him, "What are you all standing around for? Put away your weapons. These aren't rioters, they're honored guests." Hearing these words, all the hosts silently put away their guns, put on their signature smiles, and repeatedly bowed apologetically to the Shangxia Society members. "We're truly sorry, times have been too chaotic lately, we had to be careful. Besides, the way this lady rushed in just now looked too much like those madmen infected with the frenzy disease, so..." Jinian's expression became peculiar. Wei Dong briefly introduced both parties, then led the Shangxia Society members upstairs to settle into their rooms. The severely injured and unconscious Lin Chier and Jelon were also given rooms to stay in. Although they hadn't brought the medical equipment from the cruise ship, with Jinian present, reassembling 2 sets using pixels was just a minor task. After everything was settled, the Shangxia Society members immediately became busy. Some began adjusting the equipment they brought, some gathered around a map of Japan studying something, while others cleared out a room to set up a conference room. As the sun set in the west, golden light spilled into the spacious bedroom. Amidst the steady beeping of medical equipment, Lin Chia slowly opened his eyes. A wave of fatigue washed over him. He lay wearily in bed, taking quite a while to regain clarity. He stared at the ceiling for a moment before struggling to sit up. Not only was he mentally exhausted, but his entire body also felt drained of strength, leaving him extremely weak. He looked around, confusion appearing in his eyes. Where was this? He vaguely remembered that before losing consciousness he was on the Misty Sea. How did he end up in modern society upon opening his eyes? Had he returned to Daxia? Lin Chia looked at his left hand. The Amino sword was still clutched in his palm, his chest still faintly aching. The wound from being pierced by the sword hadn't completely healed. There was still a 2-centimeter deep wound on his chest. Looking carefully, one could see a faint golden light flowing in the depths of his wound. A miracle. Lin Chia's right hand touched his chest as he muttered. Wounds left by the Amino sword couldn't heal on their own, just like Wu Xiangnan before. Only a miracle could repair the sword marks left in flesh and blood. During his unconsciousness, the mortal divine domain he had desperately opened earlier was still taking effect, slowly healing the sword wound. Otherwise, with such an unhealable penetrating wound, Lin Chia would have perished long ago. And his current mental and physical exhaustion should be the aftereffects of spiritual power depletion, caused by mortal divine domain, automatically drawing spiritual power to maintain the miracle while he was unconscious. Besides, Lin Chia could clearly feel that his wound healing ability had become stronger than before. After his physical body was cleansed by massive amounts of faith power, Lin Chia's physical strength had reached an extremely powerful level. If not for this, even with the miracle repair of the Amino sword's marks, he wouldn't have been able to self-heal to this extent in such a short time. Lin Chia's gaze lingered for a moment on the pixel-style medical equipment, letting out a slight exclamation of curiosity, before removing the devices connected to his body and slowly walking towards the door. Before he could open the door, someone walked in. Seeing that person, Lin Chia was first stunned, then showed surprise in his eyes. Wei Dong. You're awake. Wei Dong's eyes lit up. I heard you were rescued while unconscious from severe injuries and I was coming to check on you. Didn't expect you'd already be out of bed. Where's Jialan? She should have been with me. Her room is right next to yours. She's still unconscious, but based on her vital signs there's no life-threatening danger. Wei Dong led Lin Chia to Jialan's room and opened the door. The blue-clothed girl was lying quietly on the hospital bed, connected to medical equipment nearby. All her vital signs were normal, but her eyes were tightly closed as if she was having a nightmare. Seeing that Jialan was safe, Lin Chia finally breathed a sigh of relief. They quietly retreated from Jialan's room. By the way, where is this? This is the human circle, Wei Dong added. Takamagara's human circle. Human circle? Lin Chia was stunned. He was back here again? Since you're awake, come downstairs with me. Wei Dong smiled slightly. The president has been waiting for you for a long time. President? What president? Of course, the president of our Shangxia Association. She's the one who rescued you and brought you here. After hesitating for a moment, Lin Chia nodded and followed Wei Dong downstairs. Considering the power supply issues, this club hadn't installed elevators, only 2 spiral black gold staircases extending downward, looking quite grand. Regarding the Shangxia Association, Lin Chia didn't know much, only that it was a neutral organization active in the mist with few members, but their presence could be found in the human circles of various divine countries. When it came to causing trouble for those outer gods countries, they were professionals. However, regarding the president of the Shangxia Association, Lin Chia knew nothing. What kind of person is your president? While walking downstairs, Lin Chia couldn't help but ask. The president. Wei Dong's expression became complex. In some ways, our president is a legend, who entered the misty world alone from Great Xia many years ago, consecutively entering several divine countries' human circles. Wherever she went, everything was turned upside down, shaking divine authority. During this process, Many people in the human circles awakened their self-consciousness because of her and chose to follow her. Although these people weren't many, most possessed outstanding talents or powerful abilities. Over time, more and more people followed her, and later the Shangxia Association was formed. The president then used her abilities to establish our ideal country, utopia, in the misty world. Is she that amazing? Lin Chia asked in surprise. Does she have such personal charisma that so many people are willing to follow her? Let me put it this way. Wei Dong thought for a moment and gave Lin Chia an example. Like in this human circle of Takamagara, there are people like Amamiya Haruki and the Yuri siblings who have awakened their self-consciousness and recognized the deformity of this world, and are trying to change it with their own power. If at this time someone suddenly descended from the sky with very advanced thoughts and unprecedented power, and started using their wisdom and strength to shatter the divine authority here with amazing efficiency, easily accomplishing what they had struggled to do for so long, would they choose to join forces with this person? After they successfully liberated this human circle, where would these homeless people go? I understand now, Lin Chia nodded thoughtfully. Those who can awaken self-consciousness in the human circle are already outstanding individuals. When they escaped their decaying cage because of this person having nowhere to go, they naturally gathered around this person. So that's how the Shangxia Association came to be. Besides, the president also periodically returns to Great Xia to recruit talent from there, Wei Dong added. So, we're not some official organization with a grand mission, just a group of homeless people. We only act according to the president's will and just want to protect our utopia. For everyone, the president is our spiritual pillar. Through Wei Dong's description, Lin Chia had sketched in his mind an image of a great and imposing leader with extraordinary personal charisma. Really impressive. Lin Chia secretly marveled, feeling more anticipation for the upcoming meeting with this president. However, our president's personality... Wei Dong started to stammer. What is it? Nothing, you'll see soon enough. As they spoke, they arrived at a private room. Wei Dong cleared his throat and made a welcoming gesture to Lin Chia. The president is inside, please. Lin Chia looked up at the name of the private room. VVVIP Supreme Shining 001? What kind of place is this? After hesitating for a moment, Lin Chia pushed open the door forcefully. Dazzling and psychedelic blue-purple lights shone from inside the room, reflecting on Lin Chia's face. He stood there like a statue staring blankly at the scene before him. In the spacious private room, several luxurious black gold leather sofas surrounded the center. A girl wearing a tattered coat had one foot on the black crystal table, holding a samurai sword she had acquired from somewhere in her left hand, and raising a glass of champagne high with her right hand. The wine gently swirled in the glass, gleaming faintly in the light. Come on. Watch me spin one, she exclaimed in perfect Japanese, raising her head high and downing the champagne in one gulp. The many handsome young men sitting around immediately stood up from their sofas, all with a hint of intoxication on their faces, applauding enthusiastically in support. For a moment, the private room was filled with thunderous applause. Jean Yen giggled, put down her champagne glass and was about to say something when her gaze fell on Lin Chia, who was standing dumbfounded at the door. Her eyes gradually brightened. At the door, Lin Chia quietly took half a step back. After pondering for a moment, he turned to ask Wei Dong. Does your president also have a fondness for being a host club worker? Sorry brothers, I was held up by something today. I'll make it up to you now with 10 consecutive chapter updates. Wei Dong's mouth twitched slightly as he pointed at the girl with one foot on the table and reluctantly said, That is our president. When saying these words, Wei Dong wished he could find a crack in the ground to crawl into. This was so embarrassing. Just after telling others about the president's heroic deeds, the carefully built image and majestic figure instantly collapsed. Lin Chia had to shift his gaze back to that girl. Judging from her appearance, she should be about the same age as him. But no matter how he looked at her, there was a huge difference from the image he had imagined. Lin Chia. The girl immediately called out his name and patted the seat beside her. Come sit here. Lin Chia was stunned. After pondering for a moment, he still walked over and sat down on the sofa, asking puzzledly, You know me? Lin Chia searched through his memories and confirmed this was his first time meeting her. They had never crossed paths before, so why could this Shanghai Association president from deep within the mist directly call out his name? Of course I know you. Jin Yan smiled slightly. She leaned close to Lin Chia's ear and said in a voice only the two of them could hear, "Which hospital room are you up to now?" Lin Chia's pupils suddenly contracted. "What hospital room?" Lin Chia asked, playing dumb. Seeing Lin Chia's vigilant eyes, Jin Yan sighed helplessly and extended her right hand, counting off her fingers one by one. Nix Merlin Bragi. The moment these three names were spoken, huge waves surged in Lin Chia's heart. When Jin Yan had just mentioned the hospital rooms earlier, he already had a vague feeling but wasn't certain. But now seeing her so easily list the names of the patients in the first three rooms, Lin Chia knew this couldn't be a coincidence. This girl knew about the existence of the God's mental hospital and knew that it was with him. "Who are you?" Lin Chia's brows furrowed tightly. Only then did Jin Yan realize she hadn't introduced herself. She coughed lightly twice, casually extended her right hand, and said with the corners of her mouth slightly raised, "Hello Director Lin, my name is Jin Yan." The mist. An electric scooter slowly drove across the turbulent sea surface. Lu Wei gripped the handlebars tightly with both hands, expressionlessly staring ahead. Behind him, two figures wearing little yellow duck hats slowly floated in the air. "Mr. Lu, can we go a bit faster?" Bailey Pong Pong's mouth twitched slightly. "At this speed, when will we ever find Chia?" Lu Wei shrugged. "My forbidden domain can only track orders at this speed. Any faster and we'll lose the target, plus the scooter might run out of battery." Bailey Pang Pang. "Your electric scooter can already ride in the mist and you're worried about the battery? Do you need to be this modest?" After complaining internally 1,000 times, just as Bailey Pang Pang was about to say something, a light sound came from behind them and powerful waves of spiritual force surged forth. Did someone break through? Chao Yuan was startled. Bailey Pang Pang and Chao Yuan turned their heads simultaneously. They saw Shin Qingzhu, who was sitting cross-legged on the golden sword flying through the air, slowly open his eyes with a faint smile at the corners of his mouth. The spiritual force emanating from his body was now dozens of times more powerful than before. Shin Qingzhu had broken through to limitless. "Unexpected that you would be faster than me." And Qingyu sighed while concentrating on controlling Yao Guang, seeming somewhat dejected. "You're busy controlling the forbidden object and don't have time to break through. If I were the one controlling Yao Guang, now you might have broken through even faster than me." Shin Qingzhu raised his eyebrows and said. And Qingyu shook his head helplessly without saying anything. "I'll control Yao Guang from here, you focus on breaking through." Shin Qingzhu took control of Yao Guang from Qinyu's hands. "Can you break through before we find Chia?" And Qingyu was silent for a moment before nodding firmly, "Yes." Up ahead, Bailey Pang Pang turned back and couldn't help but sigh. "Cool bro has broken through too. Once Qingyu breaks through, except for Sister Jiang Air and Sister Jialon, our whole team will be at limitless. The future looks bright." Chao Yuan raised his eyebrows. "Jiang Air is still at sea level, that's true since she's still young. But do you really think Jialon hasn't reached limitless?" Bailey Pang Pang was stunned. "But Sister Jialon never went through the breakthrough process? Since we've known her, when have you ever seen her break through?" Chao Yuan shook his head. "When we first met her, we thought she was at river level like us. Later, after training with the Sword Saint, when we successively broke through to sea level, she also showed sea level strength. Now we've reached limitless, and she can still pin down limitless cultivators and beat them up. She has never truly broken through in the real sense, but rather her level keeps rising along with our strength." Bailey Pang Pang was stunned for a moment. "You mean, her level is fake?" "I'm saying her true level might be higher than we imagine. She's just been hiding it and hasn't revealed it." "But why would she do that?" "Don't know. But it's not important." Chao Yuan shrugged. "Everyone has secrets like Chia's endless forbidden domains and the mystery core, like the Rui that the Celestial Lord put in your body, like how high Jialon's true level really is. We don't need to know everything, just trust each other." "That's true." Bailey Pang Pang grinned. "No matter how strong Sister Jialon is, she's still our Nightfall, Team Sister Jialon." As the two were chatting, Lu Wei, who was riding in front, suddenly braked hard and stopped on the sea surface. "Mr. Lu, what happened?" Bailey Pang Pang asked puzzledly. Lu Wei frowned as he looked at the order in his hand, surprise appearing in his eyes. The direction where Lin Chia is suddenly changed. Changed. And Qingyu frowned. Isn't it normal that he's moving? No, not that kind of small-scale movement. It's like he suddenly jumped from one space to another space. The nightfall, team members exchanged glances, all seeing worry in each other's eyes. Then, can you still find him? Bailey Pangpang asked carefully. Yes. Lu Wuwei was silent for a moment, then pointed at the sea surface below. We might need to go to the seafloor. Seafloor? And Qingyu, sitting on Yaoguang, was slightly stunned hearing these two words. He seemed to think of something, looked around at their route since leaving Greater Xia, and a thought emerged in his mind. I think I know where Chia is. The club. Commemoration. When he heard this name, Lin Chia instantly recalled the note he found in the dean's office when he first opened the Divine Asylum. According to the information on that note, the previous dean of this Divine Asylum was named Commemoration, and she had taken one item each from the patients in the first, second, and third wards. Based on Black Pupil's description before the Tsongnan catastrophe, she used these 3 divine artifacts to set up a mysterious formation that allowed young Lin Chia to survive the erasure of Shiva's grudge. It could be said that Lin Chia's journey to this point was inextricably linked to the girl before him. Countless questions surged in Lin Chia's mind. He wanted to directly ask about the truth behind everything, but after glancing around he suppressed this thought. The existence of the Divine Asylum was absolutely secret. There were many people around, and even if they might not understand Chinese, it was better to be cautious. After a moment of silence, Lin Chia looked at her with a complex expression and extended his hand as well. Hello. Dean Ji. Hearing this title, Commemoration was slightly stunned. She smiled and was about to say something when 2 explosions suddenly came from the sky outside the window. Lin Chia and Commemoration frowned simultaneously and looked outside. They saw a strange bird covered in eerie black liquid flying at an incredible speed above the street. Its wingspan stretched 200 to 300 meters, and with one powerful flap, the generated gale instantly shattered the window glass. Corpse beast? Having just been to Takamagara, Lin Chia instantly recognized the disgusting monster, his expression darkening. The gap in the Yata mirror placed in the shrine was contaminated by the red moon, allowing corpse beasts to penetrate and enter the human circle. Lin Chia recalled that gradually blood-stained mirror surface and quickly understood the connection. If this was the case, then as the contamination worsened, the scale of corpse beast invasions would also increase. At this rate, this human circle would eventually become a dead zone like Takamagara. Things were getting troublesome. Scattered glass shards flew into the private room. As Lin Chia, standing by the window, was about to act, Commemoration beside him moved first. Commemoration's eyes focused, and all the glass shards instantly decomposed into extremely fine pixel particles, gently brushing past everyone's bodies, dancing in the air for half a circle before returning to her side, swirling in her palm. Meanwhile, a second figure followed closely behind that black bird, streaking across the sky. This was a figure in blood-stained white clothes, wielding a cyberpunk-style spear with white hair dancing in the wind, crossing the sky like lightning. Those cross-star pupils narrowed slightly, the targeting reticle in his mind locked onto the flying monster. He suddenly hurled the spear in his hand, generating a terrifying sonic boom that instantly blasted the monster into pieces. A rain of blood fell from the sky, once again dyeing that white clothing with a crimson hue. He calmly gazed at the monster's remains below and muttered, "The 8th one should be able to go home now." Lin Chia's eyes lit up when he saw that white-clothed figure in the distance. That was Zurahashiro? He was hunting down corpse beasts that appeared in the human circle? Just as Lin Chia was about to chase after him, another muffled thunder rumbled from the distant sky. Yuzuru Hashiro slightly raised his head, looking at the already dim sky, his eyes showing a trace of fatigue. He sighed, pulling out the spear that had pierced the ground. "Sister's pork chop rice. Must be cold by now?" He mumbled, shook his head, gripped the spear in his hand, and his figure once again transformed into a beam of white light, breaking through space and disappearing. Lin Chia stood by the window, the evening wind gusting through the broken glass. He watched Yuzuru Hashiro's departing figure, lost in thought. This human circle has produced another human ceiling? And he looks quite young too. Commemoration spoke with some surprise. Lin Chia turned back and asked the hosts in Japanese, "When did those monsters first appear?" The host in blue thought for a moment. "About a month ago?" At first they would only appear once every few days, then the frequency increased. Now there are at least 6 or 7 appearances per day. 6 or 7 per day. Lin Chia's brows furrowed. He knew the strength of these corpse beasts. Most were at the infinite or Klein level. Although they weren't threatening enemies for Yuzuru Hashiro, having to run around the world every day to fight so many corpse beasts was still a huge burden. Most importantly, Yuzuru Hashiro's body hadn't fully recovered yet. He was only suppressing the experimental aftereffects with medication. His power was very strong, but his body was far weaker than imagined. "This world has completely gone crazy," another host spoke bitterly. "Monsters falling from the sky, outbreaks of war everywhere, and inexplicable plagues. In just a month or two, this country has become unrecognizable." "Plague? What plague?" "Red eye frenzy syndrome." The host in blue explained. "No one knows when it started spreading among people, no one knows how it appeared or how it spreads. Anyone who gets this disease has red-tinted eyes, extremely agitated behavior, and strong aggressive tendencies. Rumor has it that 60% of Japan's population has already contracted this disease, causing crime rates and death rates to soar. Even the police stations can't maintain order anymore, having been overrun by raging mobs. Shops are closed, businesses have failed, and those who haven't caught this disease basically hide at home, afraid to go out. Most areas of this country have already become zones of chaos and disorder." Red eye frenzy syndrome? Hearing these words, Lin Chia immediately recalled those frenzied villagers he saw in the fishing village, their external symptoms matching perfectly. In other words, this plague ravaging the human circle, known as red eye frenzy syndrome, was actually a manifestation of red moon contamination? Although the red moon was corroding the Yata mirror, it wasn't directly shining in, so the contamination intensity was much lower than in the fishing village. That's why people affected by the red moon contamination fell into a state of frenzy and violence, yet hadn't completely lost their sanity. However, as time passed, these people in the human circle would eventually succumb completely to the red moon's contamination. Even if they weren't killed by corpse beasts, they would die from killing each other. "If that's the case, why are you still operating?" Commemoration asked, puzzled. "Are hosts always this dedicated to their profession?" "No, we're still operating because it's the family head's order." The host in blue shook his head. "This club was specially opened by the family head for someone. The family head said that no matter how chaotic it gets outside, even if the sky falls, even if the Kazumatsu family is gone, this club must stay open. This way, when that person returns one day seeing the name of this most eye-catching club in all of Japan, they will know. They have been waiting for them all along. Kazumatsu family." Hearing these words, Lin Chia was stunned at first, then seemed to realize something, his pupils suddenly contracting. He leaped down from the broken window, landing steadily in front of the club's entrance, and looked up at the extremely eye-catching black and gold sign above the club. "Asaha Club."